Hey, my feel good friend, and welcome to another episode of the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and as always, very excited to be in your earbuds. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. And my friend, I love today's topic. Today, we are talking about the 5 different ways that you can add value to your content, to your social media posts, so that your ideal customers actually pay attention to you, and so that you can build that know, like, and trust factor that is actually going to compel your customers on Instagram to buy from you repeatedly and recommend your brand to all of their friends, right? It all comes back to value. When you create valuable content, your customers will actually pay attention to you in the sea of other people on Instagram. And this is where it all starts, right? So today I am doing a value add breakdown for you guys. There are 5 categories of value that you can add to your content on Instagram. And so I'm going to be sharing what those things are, giving you the deep dive explanation, and also sharing examples and suggestions for how you can add these different categories of value to your content more often. Okay. So I cannot wait to dive in. But before we do, I just want to remind you, if you enjoy the Feel Good Social podcast, if you love tuning in and listening, please don't forget, recommend this podcast to all your biz buddies as well, right? We're trying to grow our Feel Good Social community over here. We want to make sure that all business owners feel like they can show up on Instagram and market their business in a way that feels good to them, right? And so if you enjoy the podcast and you love what we're all about, make sure that you tell your friends all about us. And also, if you enjoy this episode, make sure you share it to your Instagram stories. Just snap a screenshot and make sure that you tag me. I'm at Feel Good Social on Instagram, because if you tag me, I can totally reshare it. I can spread the love right back to you, give you a follow, all those things, because I'd love to connect with you over on Instagram. Okay. All right. Without further ado, let's dive into the 5 categories that you can use to add value to your content on Instagram. Hey friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Do you know what your brand vibe is on Instagram? I have a new fun quiz that's just for you, my friend. I, of all people, know how hard it is to figure out how the heck you're supposed to translate your brand to the gram. And with this quick 7-question quiz, we will help you hone in on your brand's personality, voice, and visuals so that you can show up consistently and create content that looks beautiful and feels on brand for you. This quiz is so awesome. It's been a long time coming, and I know that you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Plus, the results will help you show up in the best way for you. If you'd like to check out our new brand vibe quiz, just head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz. Pretty easy. Head to feelgoodsocial.com/quiz to find out what your brand's vibe is on social media and start showing up there for your brand. Okay, now before we do dive straight into what these 5 categories of value add are, and break them down and give examples and all those different things, I really quickly want to touch on why adding value and creating valuable content is so important, especially for social media, right? Because it's kind of one of those buzzwords you might hear a lot of marketers talking about online, like always give value. Like, you might have heard me talking about giving value, making sure your content is valuable for your ideal customer, right? You hear a lot of people saying that, but I really want you to understand why and what we mean by that, right? So when it comes to Instagram and social media in general, obviously there are a lot of people out there, and there are a lot of brands out there doing very similar things to you. There are a lot of just people in general creating content. It's this endless stream that we can just scroll through when it comes to content. And we have a lot to choose from. But at the same time, our attention spans are very minimal. Your ideal customers have so much content to choose from, the entire world, and also very similar brands to yours. And their attention span is very limited. So we are very selective with our attention as to what we pay attention to, especially on social media, because it's just this endless stream, right? So that's why we need to make sure that the content that you are creating is speaking directly to your ideal customers and giving them some sort of value that makes them actually want to slow their scroll and pay attention to your content, right? Because if they just stop on your post real quick and they kind of start to consume it, but they're like, this is boring, or this doesn't have anything to do with me, or I'm not going to get anything out of this, they'll just keep on scrolling, right? So that's why we need to make sure that we add value, like stuff to your content that your ideal customers specifically find valuable, right? So that when they pause on your post, they'll be like, oh my gosh, this lady is speaking to my soul right now, right? Or, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. Or, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. I love this, right? Your ideal customers need to immediately be getting some sort of value out of the post that you're creating, or else they'll just scroll on by, right? So that is the first reason that adding value to your post, I'm going to touch on this again in a second, but I'm just going to keep repeating myself, valuable for your ideal customer. That is the key, my friend. But that's the first reason that's so important, because there's so much content out there, and we want to make sure that your ideal customers actually pause and pay attention to your posts and they don't just scroll on by, right? The other reason that we want to make sure that we're adding value to every piece of content that we create is because not only will this get your ideal customer to pause on your post and actually pay attention to it, but value is what really helps you build trust with your ideal customer so that they will then choose your brand over the many brands out there that are like yours, right? Adding value is how you start to build that know, like, and trust factor, build your brand's affinity with your ideal customers so that they buy from you and they recommend you to all of their friends, right? It's a slow process for sure. That's why the social media content marketing game is the long game, right? Over time, continuously giving value to your ideal customers. This is how we build trust. But I swear it pays off if you do show up consistently. This is how they start to trust you and they feel compelled to want to join your brand's community and buy from your brand, right? So those are the two reasons that adding value to your post is super, super important. Firstly, it makes your ideal customers actually pay attention to your posts and not scroll on by. And secondly, it helps them to build trust with you so that they then eventually want to buy from you, and you ultimately see success on Instagram, right? And with your brand on social media, all the different stuff, right? So those are the two reasons. Now, before we do dive into the breakdown of the 5 different categories of value, I'm quickly going to once again state the golden rule. Okay. I have to drive this golden rule home for you before we start talking about the different types of value, because this is ultimately like the cornerstone, the pillar of how you will determine what is valuable content for your brand. Okay. And how to give value in your content. Can you guess what this golden rule is? Because I already kind of, hinted at it a little bit earlier. The golden rule is that you always need to keep your ideal customer in mind, my friend. Okay. Value is different, depending on the situation that you're in and who you're speaking to, right? So your brand giving value to your ideal customer is going to look a little bit different than if you were trying to give value to your mom or right, or like your babysitter or something like that. It's going to look a little bit different. The way I give value to my ideal customers is different than the way you give value to your ideal customers. Okay. So this is the difference between all of our brands. And this is why it's super, super important to understand who your ideal customer is and who you're speaking to, because how can you know how to give value to them if you don't know who they are, what they want, what they struggle with, all that different stuff, right? So that is the very first step. And the thing that I want you to like literally write down on a sticky note and slap it on your computer every time you go to create content, right? Who is my ideal customer? Like always keep your ideal customer in mind, because exactly like I said, it's super easy to get off track, to think about, oh, I'm speaking to this other person. Or even, what I run into is often I will find myself thinking about creating content and I find myself slipping into the, what do I, Kinsey, find valuable, right? And like what I find valuable is a little bit different than what my ideal customers find valuable, right? You in the middle of your business, as the head of your business, understanding all the things, already understanding the concepts that you help your ideal customers understand, like what you find valuable and the way you talk about things is going to be different than exactly what they find valuable, right? So that's another little thing I always like to keep in mind too, because sometimes I go down my little Kinsey rabbit hole and I start like, oh my gosh, I should create a post about this because I think it's super interesting and I just found out about it and all that different stuff. But it's like this kind of higher level marketing thing, which I'm sure you guys would find interesting, but like also like, is it necessary? Like, not really, So always keep that in mind too. Always keep your ideal customers in mind. What is valuable for them? And as you're creating content, what is in this post for them? What's in it for them? What's going to make them slow their scroll? Stop and say, oh my gosh, this is for me, or this is so helpful, or that is hilarious, right? What's going to make them stop and do that? Okay, now let's go ahead and break down the 5 value categories for your content. The first one is education. Okay, and this is kind of the obvious one. This is why I start with this one all the time, because education is like, it's what we immediately kind of recognize as like something being valuable, especially when it comes to your content, right? So teaching your ideal customer something, giving them tips to do something, like anything that is helpful for them, right, is probably going to go into the education value category. And you can definitely see how that is quote unquote valuable for your ideal customers. If you're scrolling along on Instagram and you've been struggling with a problem and all of a sudden you see a post where it's like giving you 3 tips to immediately help you solve this problem quickly, like, heck yeah, I'm probably going to be like, oh my gosh, I needed this. Thank you so much. Like in the comments or something, right? Like that I would find valuable. And not only will that make me pause on someone's post, but that'll also make me trust that person more so. And also want to keep an eye out for their content in the future, because I'm like, heck yeah, this lady just helped me so much. I love you so much, right? Like that's a quick win sort of thing that can really help with trust building in your brand, right? So education is the first way you can add value to your content, the first category, right? And education, I kind of mentioned, it can be like tips, right? You see a lot of that on Instagram and Instagram posts, people like sharing 5 tips for this, 3 quick tips for that, how to do this in whatever way, like really quickly and stuff, right? It can be the form of tips like that, where you can give your clients or your followers quick wins, so to say. But it can also look like just explanations of an idea or of a topic, right? A lot of people, if you're listening to this podcast for any amount of time, if this isn't your first episode, well, you probably have heard me talking about content pillars and content buckets before, right? As like an aid to help you batch plan your content and understand what the heck to post about and all that different stuff, right? But if this is your first episode, or if you haven't heard me talk about that before, or if you're new to marketing and the online business world and all that different stuff, maybe you haven't heard about content buckets or content pillars, right? Which I do have, I do have several episodes about content pillars, my friend. If you are looking for a deep explanation about them, definitely scroll back and just look for any episodes entitled content of some sort, and you will hear about content pillars, I'm sure. But, a lot of people who are new to marketing don't know what this means, right? And as soon as they hear it and they understand it a little bit more, so it changes their life, right? So it's not like necessarily giving tips about content pillars, although I totally could do that too. But even just creating a post or a podcast episode explaining the concept of content pillars could be very valuable for my ideal customers, right? So think about certain topics or concepts that you explain to your ideal customers, and you can create content around them, and that's educational and also valuable, right? Then there's obviously the hot tips or the quick tips that you can share, 3 tips for, 5 ways to, that sort of post is really, really helpful. The one thing I like to say when it comes to sharing tips on Instagram is to, one, either keep them very quick, like a quick win, right? Like easy steps to do and quickly solve a certain problem that your ideal customer has, or like help them, implement something in a certain way, right? And if you can keep them like very light and not overwhelming and quick, and give them that quick win, that is a super awesome way to build trust with them immediately, right? And be like, oh my gosh, I love you. Thank you for this, right? Or the other thing with tips is you can also make them like bigger tips, but like keep them more broad, right? Here's the thing about attention spans on Instagram. They're minimal. We know this, right? So we need to keep our tips quick, no matter if they're small to the point, super actionable, or if they're touching on like a bigger, broader topic, right? So if you're going to be very specific with your tips, make sure it's a quick win sort of thing and like easy to implement and all that different stuff. If you're touching on a broader topic, it's totally okay to keep your tips broad and not deep dive and overwhelm people with information, right? So, batch planning your monthly content. First step is to start big picture, map out all your content on a calendar. Then you zoom in slowly, give yourself prompts for each post that you want to create. Then you zoom in even more and create your individual social media posts, right? I have created multiple hour-long episodes for the podcast about how to batch plan content. Go back and give them a listen if you do want to dive deeper into that. But on Instagram, that is probably how I would share the big, broad topic and tips about this big, broad topic, is to keep them very kind of overarching and not do the deep dive, right? Just because content on Instagram needs to be consumed very quickly, or else people will get distracted. So that's my tips for sharing tips, right? Another way you could share education, value add content is perspective shifts and opinions, okay? So this is a really great, and I think this would fall into the education category for sure. But if any of your ideal customers think a certain way or believe something that you don't necessarily agree with, or that you think like a perspective shift could totally change their life and stuff like that, this is a really great content to share on social media, because not only is it helpful for your ideal customers to understand the perspective shifts that they need to make and to shift their limiting beliefs, to maybe hop on board your opinions, right? Like it's helpful for them. They will find this valuable, but also perspective shifts and opinion focused content is really great for setting yourself apart from all the other brands who are very similar to you, right? So anything in your industry or with your ideal customers that like your industry believes, or your ideal customers believe that your brand doesn't necessarily believe, or something that they need to shift their perspective around, or like a specific opinion you have, this is great content because it's helpful, but also like it will make you stand out from all the other brands in your industry who are very similar to yours, right? So those are the three things that you could possibly share under the education value add category: explanations, hot tips and how to's, and then perspective shifts and opinions. So go ahead. You might want to get out a pen and paper and start brainstorming ideas for all these different types of value add content that you can share, right? But as long as you have like something like that in one of the pieces of content that you're creating, that will ensure that your content is valuable, or that piece of content is valuable, right? Okay. Another way you can add value to your content, the second category is entertainment. Okay. And this is probably something that you've heard before as well. And like when I explain it, it'll totally make sense. But entertainment is so valuable, especially on social media for your people. Okay. So if you can be funny in one of your posts, or if you can share some sort of drama in one of your posts, that will ensure that you're adding value that entices your ideal customers to want to pay attention to that piece of content, right? So like I just said, entertainment, I like to break it into two different categories: humor and drama. I mean, how much is a laugh worth? So much. And also like Netflix, like how often are all of us just binging all these dramatic TV shows? Like we crave humor and drama as humans. Like it's just something that we love, right? So if you can be entertaining in your posts, awesome. Like y'all people will pay attention, right? So breaking down these two different categories of entertainment: humor, like what is your brand's sense of humor? Lean into that, right? We've all know those people who like try to be funny, but they're not really funny. So I really want to encourage you to really think about like, what do I think is funny? Like, how do I show up in the world? What do I laugh at? Right? Like, try to really lean into honestly, like what you find to be humorous and, all that stuff. If you're creating your own brand's content, I mean, keep your brand in mind too, but like, we just want to make it as like genuine humor as possible. Right. But it could be like dorky dad humor, like puns. Like that's kind of me often. And I love working with clients that are kind of like have a punny brand, because that's some of my favorite humor to create. Sometimes I definitely do that with Feel Good Social content as well. It could look like irony, right? It could look like, sarcasm, if that's the type of humor that your brand has. And also remember to think about your ideal customers. Like, what do they find funny, right? It could also just be like commenting on everyday moments. I don't know if you watch stand-up comedy or not, but like there's those comedians that are just like, a lot of comedians that I watch, at least for stand-up comedy, is just like commenting on going to the grocery store and this happened, just like commenting on like how funny or ironic or whatever it is, like an everyday moment could be for your brand, is really good. Right. So for Feel Good Social, Instagram Reels have been glitching out hardcore lately. Like when you go to post it, like all of a sudden, like the videos turn sideways, or like the text is all either blurry or like squished together or something like that. And it's super annoying, right? So actually yesterday I created a reel myself that's like mimicking Michael from The Office. And he's like screaming like, no. I don't know if you're an Office fan, but it's from the episode where like Toby, the human resources dude that Michael hates, comes back to the office and Michael realizes it. And he's like, God, no. Like so mad that Toby's back because like Michael hates him or whatever. Okay, I digress. I did a mimicky reel to that about like Instagram Reels glitching, and people loved it because it was relatable but also funny, right? I could also like probably do like a sarcastic or ironic reel. Like maybe in the future I'll create a reel on purpose that's like looks glitchy, right? Or something like that. Like that could be funny and relatable for my ideal audience and stuff like that. So what does humor look like for your brand that your ideal customers will appreciate? right? If you can add that to your content, it will make your people pay attention to you more on Instagram. And it will also make them feel like closer to you friendship wise. You'll build that know, like, and trust factor, because when you share a laugh with someone, don't you feel closer to them? It's the same for your brand, my friend. Okay, entertainment. The second category is drama. And it took me a second to really think about, okay, like I know drama is a part of entertainment and I know that entertainment is valuable in your content. But as I was typing up my notes for this episode, I was like, what the heck does drama look like in your content? I had to think about it for a second, but it totally makes sense the more I thought about it. If you can share about the struggle that you have in your business, if you can share through specific struggles that you've gone through, mistakes that you have made, and lessons that you have learned, right? That is entertaining. That's compelling. That's going to make people pay attention. That is drama, entertainment, and valuable, my friend. Okay. So really don't shy away from sharing the struggle, the mistakes, the lessons learned, all that different stuff. From sharing even like heart-wrenching stories sometimes can be valuable. When it comes to sharing drama, mistakes, all that stuff, I will say that it's often better storytelling wise to include kind of like a wrap up. You know what I mean? So you share the struggle, but you share how you overcame it, right? You share the mistake you made, but you also share the lesson you learned, right? If you share like a sad story, maybe ending it on like a hopeful note or something like that, right? Or at least ending it with like a point, right? A moral of the story or something like that, or like something like that, right? Like storytelling wise, that is super, super compelling when it comes to sharing drama. So I don't want you to just go air your brand's dirty laundry on Instagram. That's what I'm saying when it comes to drama. Like make sure that you're telling the story and that it feels compelling and interesting for your ideal customer. But I'm also saying you don't gotta shy away from sharing the hard stuff, right? So that's the second category of value, my friend, is entertainment. And that can either look like humor, adding little funny jokes or commenting on daily life or being ironic or sarcastic or punny or any of those things. And it can also look like drama, sharing the struggle, sharing the heartbreak, sharing whatever, but also maybe sharing like the full transformation of the story and giving a conclusion that's satisfying for your ideal customer too, right? So that's the first two categories: education, entertainment. Let's go ahead and move on to the third category, which is inspiration. Okay. Real quick, have I invited you to join the Feel Good Social Club yet? Oh man, my friend, I would love for you to check out our new monthly membership for down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are ready to create content with ease, actually show up and strategically market your business online every month, and also make friends with rad down-to-earth entrepreneurs who are just like you, who get it, who are in the posting trenches with you, and who are ever ready to give you a friendly air high five or kick in the accountability booty whenever you need it. The Feel Good Social Club is where it is at. Check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. In the club, we have a content library full of Canva templates and tutorials and resources to help you make content creation as easy as possible. We also have monthly content planning workshops where we all come together and talk about the upcoming month's strategy for our content. And we also have community forums where you can get together, ask questions of other club members, brainstorm ideas, ask for feedback. So definitely check it out, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Our Feel Good members are seriously some of the most amazing people that I have ever met. And I would love for you to join us, feelgoodsocial.com/club. Check it out. Join today. We would love to see you in there, my friend. All right, let's dive back into today's episode. So in the past, I have actually kind of smushed together inspiration with the final two categories that I'm going to be sharing with you, but I think that they're a little different, right? So inspiration is super, super valuable because people want to be inspired in their life, right? They love, like, we're all going through our journey of life. We're on this like transformation, this constant ongoing thing, right? And we're all striving to be something better. We're all kind of striving for improvement, striving for change, whatever, whatever, whatever. So if you can give your customers, your ideal customers, inspiration in your content, that's valuable. That's something that they'll pay attention to, right? So when it comes to inspiration, probably the most obvious, I guess, like idea for inspirational content that you might go to immediately is like future desires of your ideal customer, right? Think like if you, I don't know if you're a travel nerd or not, but I kind of am. And so I follow a lot of travel accounts on Instagram, like beautiful photos, right? Like, oh my gosh, of course I want to go to that freaking fjord cliff thing in Iceland or what. I don't even know. I think that's what it's called. But, oh my gosh, I want to do that hike in Hawaii. That looks amazing. Like that's kind of future desire inspiration content that I love to follow on Instagram. So what does that look like for your brand, right? For Feel Good Social as a social media marketer kind of thing, it might be like showing people that I have planned my clients' content calendar for the entire month, right? Like, I don't know, maybe that's like a future inspiration thing that my people have, like, right? Showing that I plan out my monthly content calendar in like 3 hours. And then I also like take the weekends off social media and all those different things. Like that might be something that's inspirational and like a future desire for a lot of my ideal customers. And that's stuff that I could share on Instagram that like kind of gives them hope, right? Or inspires them to want to be there too one day or something like that, right? So what does that look like for your brand? Okay, the second way that you can, or second category, subcategory within inspiration, I guess, is more like helping people generate ideas in the present, right? So the first one was kind of like future, where do I want to be, inspiration. And the second category is helping people generate ideas and inspiring them for the present moment, right? And this could probably be kind of tied into the education category and the helpful tips category as well, right? But like, for Feel Good Social, it could be helping you. Oh, you know what I've been doing lately, actually? I went through that whole like Reels challenge for myself in February, and I've just been continuing to create more and more Reels just because I'm finding them fun and they are performing pretty well, let's be honest. And so what I've been doing lately is like, I'll create a reel and then I'll share it to my Instagram stories and I'll say, let's brainstorm ideas of how you can recreate this reel for your brand. Right. And I like pose a question to them, like, what have they been struggling with lately? For the Michael reel that I described earlier, where he's like, no, God, no, and for me, for Feel Good Social, I paired that with when you go to post a reel on Instagram and it glitches, right? And he's like, no, he's like raging it out. I could share that to my Instagram stories and pose the question, like, what do you and or your ideal customers get super ragey about? Right? Like that's how you could recreate that reel for your brand, right? Basically just like mimicking the same thing, but then you slap the text box label on top of it and it says something different that's more relatable for your brand and your ideal customers, right? But kind of meta, or I don't know if that's even meta, but like going back, looking outside the box at that process, that's one way that I help share inspirational, valuable content in the present moment, generating ideas, sharing by example, inspiring by example in the present moment, right? So how can you help inspire your customers in their present moment, right? What would that look like for your brand? And then the third way you can share inspiring content on Instagram is sharing transformations. Okay. And this is like so freaking powerful for people. This is so, so compelling. Transformation stories, right? And it's kind of going back to what I was saying about sharing dramatic stories and how you want to make sure that you're pairing like the struggle with how you overcame it. You want to make sure that you're pairing mistakes made with the lesson learned, right? that is a transformation story. And transformation stories are so emotional for people, so compelling for people, and people will really want to pay attention to you, right? So think about the journey that you have already taken and the lessons learned, the transformations that you've made on your journey, and think about your ideal customers and the journey that they are currently on, right? And what parallels are there? Right? Maybe they are currently struggling with a problem that you have overcame in your own journey, right? And if you can share your journey and your transformation and relate it to them, then that is a way to inspire them, right? And they will find that valuable. And that will also help you build trust with them, and they'll feel emotionally connected to you in that way, right? Because that's how powerful transformation journeys are. So think about like all of the transformations that you've made, the lessons learned, mistakes made, all the different stuff in your own journey. And will your ideal customers relate to any of those? And when you share that in your content, they'll pay attention to you. They'll probably say like, me too. They'll be inspired by you. Maybe they're going through a struggle currently and they read your transformation journey and you're like, oh my gosh, like, okay, there is a light at the other end of the tunnel. I can make it through this. Like, look at what she did. It's great. Right. So, that's how you can inspire your ideal customers too, and they will find that valuable. Okay. So first three categories: education, entertainment, inspiration. I can't wait to see what ideas you're coming up with. If you're inspired by this episode right now and you want to share any content ideas that you're coming up with, then definitely reach out to me on Instagram, my friend. I'm at feelgoodsocial. I would love to hear like your favorite takeaway from this episode or the favorite idea for content that you've come up with or something like that. Okay. The fourth category for adding value to your content is motivation. And like I said kind of previously, I used to really like group inspiration and motivation together in value add content categories, but I think that they're a little bit different. Okay. So when it comes to motivation, what you really want to think about is like, I think inspiration is kind of giving hope to your ideal customer, right? And motivation is more compelling them to take action of some sort, right? Like motivation is kind of more an action word. Inspiration is more of an idea word, I think. So when it comes to motivation, there are a few ways that you can motivate your ideal customers. The first one is pretty obvious: encouragement. Right? Like if you are, especially if like you're a coach or something, like encouragement is kind of an obvious one, but all of us in our brands help our ideal customers overcome some sort of struggle, right? So we all want to be our ideal customer's cheerleader in some way. It's okay. We're cheerleaders for our ideal customer because we are helping them solve a problem and overcome a struggle of some sort, right? So definitely it's okay to create content that is encouraging your ideal customers through this transformation that you help them go on, right? Like, you got this, girl. Like that sort of content, it's helpful, right? We all like to be cheered on. I love like getting like, I don't know, messages that are just like, oh my gosh, like you're so great. Thank you so much. Like, or, oh my gosh, you are doing awesome. Like, keep it up. Right. I love that sort of stuff. So, it's okay to create content around it, and it's okay to reach out to your ideal customers on Instagram in the DMs and also just like send them a little encouraging message. They will find that so valuable. They will feel so seen, loved, heard, special, and it will help them not only pay attention to your content, have your brand stick out in their mind and remember your brand, but also to help you build trust with them, right? So encouragement is awesome. The second way you can be motivating in your content is speaking to pain and or empathizing right? So if you can say, oh gosh, I know Instagram is so frustrating, annoying, confusing, overwhelming, anxiety inducing. Like, yeah, it sucks. Like, I'm here with you, that's what I would call motivational, and kind of like the backwards opposite motivational. You're not dragging people down, but like you're relating to them. You're sitting with them in the feelings of whatever their struggle is, empathizing with the feelings. And that is equally valuable, right? We all have that friend who we just need to like give us a hug when we're having a bad day, right? And be like, I still love you. And like, I feel you and it's going to be okay. We're in this together, right? So that's the type of motivation that I'm talking about in this content. And that's valuable for your ideal customers. I use this type of language all the time in Feel Good Socials content, like empathizing, bringing to light, not sweeping under the rug how freaking annoying Instagram is, right? And I think people really relate to that. I have a lot of people reach out to me and be like, thank you for saying that you roll your eyes at Instagram every day, because I do too. And I'm like, yeah, girl, it's annoying. Like, let's try to make it less annoying if we can, So that's what I'm talking about. So first, motivation, encouragement. Second, motivation, empathizing. Third motivation, reality checks. Okay. And in parentheses, I have, let's cut the crap because that's kind of how I think about it, right? Is like, we already encouraged people. We already talked about how we can empathize with them and speak to their pain points. But I run into this a lot with social media. Sometimes we tend to wallow, right? Or sometimes we believe something and we need a reality check to get us out of our heads and be like, oh yeah, it's not that scary. Or, oh yeah, nobody's going to die if I don't post to Instagram today or something like that, right? And that can be super motivational. That can be like a kick in the booty for people to like take action, right? And it's valuable. So like, what reality checks do your ideal customers need from your brand to give them that little kick in the booty, right? Or to get them out of their head and stop just kind of getting lost in like this swirling idea that they believe that's not really true, right? That in your content can be super valuable for people because it can take them out of their head, give them that kick in the booty, help them feel better about something that they thought was like a bigger deal than it really is, So for Feel Good Social, I do this all the time. I'm like, okay, let's actually talk about how, judgmental and in the spotlight you are when you post on Instagram. I actually was just doing a collaboration reel with my client, Tanya. And this is one of the things that has always hit home for her the most, because when I first started working with her, she was a little bit scared to show up on social media because she thought people were going to judge her. She thought everyone would be looking at her post and like immediately, like if it wasn't perfect or if it wasn't professional, it would like mean something about her and all that different stuff. So often with Tanya, I will need to give reality checks. It's like, lady, there's so much content on Instagram, and not everyone on Instagram is going to see your post. And the people who do aren't judging you as much as you're judging you. And also, they might forget about it in 5 minutes because there's so much content out there. So let's just post on Instagram consistently, build this audience, and go from there. And guess what? 2.5 years later, I've been working with Tanya for like 2 years now. She has consistently been posting on Instagram and she's grown her following by like 700 followers, But guess what? If she wouldn't have been posting this entire time on Instagram, she would have gone nowhere. Okay. So that's kind of a reality check that I give to my Feel Good Social people often. What does that look like for your brand? Okay. And then also under motivation, I once again put lessons learned, right? The more you can share transformation stories, the more you can share mistakes made, lessons learned, how you overcame struggle, that sort of stuff. Like that can give people a kick in the booty. Not only can it be inspirational, but it can also compel them to take action. So just had to bring it back to the lessons learned. That is always great content as well for you, okay? Okay, the value categories so far that we have are education, entertainment, inspiration, motivation, and the final category is relatability. Okay. This actually is a value add piece that should be incorporated into all of the categories above, like as much as possible, right? Like, no matter what, we always want to add value to our content, but we also want to make sure that our content is relatable and speaking directly to our ideal customers, right? And those kind of do go hand in hand, right? Actually, all of these categories can totally cross over each other. Okay. So I just have to give you that permission slip right now if you've been wondering that. Like, these are not neat and tidy boxes. These are not neat and tidy categories. There's going to be crossover, and that's okay. And that's wonderful, right? Because the more value you add to the content, the better, the more people are likely to pay attention to it. But especially relatability, this is something that should be incorporated into every single piece of content. Just make sure that you are speaking directly to your ideal customers and you are giving something to them that's relatable for them, that they understand, right? That they can say, oh yeah, she gets me, right? But I did want to bring this and make this a separate category entirely, because I think that relatability is a way that you can share content that helps your brand stand out more so from the rest of the people in your industry that's similar to you and doing similar things, right? And also, you can totally create content every once in a while that's like strictly relatable and doesn't necessarily add value in any other way, right? And what I mean by that is, sharing the fun facts or like the quirks about your brand that make you different from other brands out there, but also that your ideal customer can be like, oh, me too. Right? Or sharing your lifestyle that's like, doesn't really have anything to do with your brand, but it's kind of like a part of your brand. It kind of makes your brand who it is, right? And also, it might be what attracts your ideal customers and the people that you want to work with you and your brand, right? So, what I mean by this is, like, for example, a quirk that I don't know if I talk about it a lot with Feel Good Social, but I definitely have mentioned it, and people come to me and say, oh my gosh, yeah, me too, right? Is I am super into Star Wars. And I actually have the Death Star tattooed behind my left ear. My dog is named after a Star Wars villain who dies in like the first movie. I went to the Star Wars movies with my dad when I was young. Brett loves Star Wars too. It's a big part of his childhood growing up. Brett and I connect on Star Wars, which is hilarious. You know what I mean? And so it's something that I talk about sometimes, like, self-proclaimed nerd over here for sure. Love Star Wars, love Lord of the Rings, all that stuff. And not everyone relates to that, obviously, but I have had people come to me and be like, oh my gosh, like, I love Star Wars too. And we connect on that level, right? And to that person, it sets me apart from everyone else online, right? Another thing that I talk about a lot is the Enneagram, right? This is something that I connect with a lot of people about. The Enneagram is kind of a personality test sort of thing that I really didn't know much about until I interviewed in episode 14, Harmony Brown of Thrive and Grow, all about the Enneagram. And she broke down all the numbers for us. It's a really good episode. It's what I would call a cult following episode, right? Those movies that like some people love and then like none of the rest of the world knows about, right? That's what I would call episode 14 about the Enneagram for the Feel Good Social podcast. But if you like the Enneagram, or if you're curious, definitely go back and give it a listen. I still send it to tons of people today. But now that I know about the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 7. I will usually ask people like, oh, hey, are you into it? Like, what's your number? And it's something that we can connect to each other about, right? It doesn't have anything to do with social media, business, or anything like that. But it's something that like I can connect with my ideal customers on like a relatable level, and it will kind of differentiate me from all the rest of the social media marketers out there if I can connect with someone about this, right? So that's what I mean about relatable content. It's definitely okay to share relatable content, and it's valuable, and to incorporate these like little quirks into your content that make your ideal customers feel less alone. right? Not only does it help you connect with them and make them feel seen, heard, loved, less alone, right? But it also helps you build that trust and likability factor that differentiates you and makes them want to choose you. Right. So there's, the quirks, the fun facts. I have lived in 3 states, Montana, Indiana, Colorado. I love the mountains. I love to ski. I love travel, outdoors, climbing, rock climbing. I share about a lot of this stuff on Feel Good Social, and sure, it doesn't land home for everyone, but the people who it does land home for, it lands home hard. And also people start to remember me by that relatable stuff, right? And then also my lifestyle, dogs, travel, rock climbing, like I said, all the different things. Like that sort of stuff is totally okay to share in your content, and it can totally be valuable for your ideal customers. So not only is it okay to create posts that are strictly like relatable, I would definitely say keep it to like minimal content, percentage wise, right? Like we don't only want to be sharing just like lifestyle content if we're like a business account because we want to make sure that we're speaking directly to your ideal customers. We are being clear and concise with our messaging. We're giving them help and all that different stuff, right? But every once in a while, it's totally okay to share a post that's like about your dog or something like that, right? Gives people a little bit of a peek into your personal life and your lifestyle and all the different stuff, right? So those are the 5 categories for valuable content on social media, my friend. Once again, they are education, entertainment, inspiration, motivation, and then relatability. And I hope that this was super, super helpful for you. If you want any more of a breakdown or tips or anything like that, make sure that you reach out to me on Instagram. I'm at Feel Good Social. I would love to chat with you about this in the DMs. And while you're there, why not go ahead and share this episode to your Instagram stories? Take a screenshot, slap it on your stories. Make sure that you tag me at Feel Good Social so I can reshare it and also just spread some love right back to you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you next time I catch you. Thanks so much for listening, my friend. For show notes and a whole lot of other awesome freebies, visit feelgoodsocial.com. Simply go to feelgoodsocial.com for all the goods.